Hello, folks. In this video, I'd like to talk about chord voicings. A voicing is how we arrange the notes in a particular chord. So, for instance, I could play C like this. I could play C like this. I could also play C like this. So I'm still using the same notes, I'm just arranging them differently. I'm playing some notes in different places across the fretboard. All right, C is an excellent place to start because it is a very familiar chord to us. So we're used to playing C like this. I'm holding down the 3rd fret of the A string, and the rest of my strings are open, and voila, I've got a C. So in order to figure out some different voicings, in order to mix up our notes, we need to know what notes we're playing. Now, I'm going to keep a lot of the note names and note finding pretty simple, and I'm going to breeze by it here. Really, the thing that you're going to want to remember for now are these different shapes that we're going to be exploring. And you'll see the chord diagrams on the handouts that are going to kind of guide you. The best way to learn the notes across the frets and up and down the neck of your ukulele is going to be picking up small groups of notes at a time. And we're going to be covering a lot of stuff in this video. So basically I'm saying no pressure. Don't worry about memorizing if I'm rattling off note names or something like that. And you're like, huh? Just focus on the chord diagrams and you'll be fine. So in a C chord, I have 3 notes. A C chord is a major triad. It's a chord that's made up of 3 notes, and it's major as opposed to minor, which would sound like this. So we're just focusing on our major chords today. And the 3 notes that make our C major chord are a C, E, and G. But of course, we have 4 strings on a ukulele, and typically we're strumming all of our strings when we play. This note right here, the 3rd fret of our A string, is actually another C note. So I've just got 2 different C notes. So there are only 3 unique notes, and one of those notes is doubled an octave higher, just like that. Now, one simple way that I could explore the notes all over the fretboard of my instrument is if I have a chromatic tuner on my ukulele. So I can use this to tune. I can tune up right now, make sure that, okay, my A is in tune. Now if I play a fret, I'm going to play the 1st fret here. Well, it's A sharp. And the 2nd fret is a B. I'm getting a little sharp there. My intonation's a little weird. C would be the 3rd fret, and so forth and so on. So I can just play notes up my neck using this chromatic tuner to help me figure out what notes are what. So I've got those 3 notes in a C chord, C, E, and G. To come up with a different voicing, or to find a different voicing on the ukulele, I just need to rearrange those notes. Find a way to play those notes in a different place. Now, this shape right here might be familiar to you if you've played the B chord or the B flat chord, where you're barring across a fret with your index finger and then holding down a couple strings with your other fingers. So here I am barring all of my strings on the 3rd fret, and I'm also playing the 5th fret of the G string and the 4th fret of the C string. Now, this also makes a C chord. I'm holding down the 3rd fret of that A string with my pointer finger right here. So that's covering that note that we already know is C. This note right here, the 5th fret of my G string, happens to be the same C note as that one right there. So once again, we're doubling that C note. The 4th fret of the C string is an E note, and the 3rd fret of the E string is a G note. So once again, I have my C, E, G. So all those notes are there. Another voicing of C is just as simple as the C down here, except now I'm I'm holding down the 7th fret of this A string. Now, what changes there? I can hear there's a difference in the sound, but it still works together. I still have C, E, and G in my open strings. Now, the 7th fret of the A string is another E note. So I just changed the note that I'm doubling. C, E, G, E. Like so. Now, taking this 7th fret one step further, I can also play this pattern right here. Actually, I'll play it like this. So I'm playing what is essentially the G chord shape, but I'm all the way up here on the 7th and 8th frets. So I slid my pointer and middle fingers from the 2nd fret in that G position up here to the 7th fret, and I put my ring finger on the 8th fret of the E string right in between there. And my G string can stay open G, because that's right there in the chord too. So here I have a G, and another G, and a C, and an E. Pretty cool. So now I have a bunch of different voicings for this C chord that I can use. Now all of these Cs are going to work just fine in place of our regular C. So if you wanted, you could play this C all the time instead of this C, and that's going to be fine. You could play this C, or you could play this C. They're all going to work as C chords. What voicings do is they give us other options. So if we were designing a chord melody song or something like that, where we want the melody notes to stay on top, I might want to find a different way to play different chords so that the melody note is always the highest note in our chord voicings. So that's one reason I might want to do it. If I'm playing with a group, I might want to blend with some other ukuleles, and maybe if the person next to me is playing this C, maybe I want to play this C to kind of change things up, make that sound a little bit bigger, change the texture a little bit. Once again, I could jump up here. So if one person's playing this, and the other person's playing this, it's all going to blend together and just make a bigger C. Let's jump through a few other ones. We have our F chord. This is the F we all know and love. I could also play F right here. This one's a little tough to get. I still have a little bit of trouble with this one, where I'm playing the 5th fret of the G, C, and E string with my ring finger, and I'm playing the 3rd fret of the A with my index finger. So I've got to bend my ring finger just so I'm not touching that A string. It's tricky to get. It takes practice. If I'm not thinking about it, it works great. As soon as I start thinking about it, then it just starts clunking on me. I can also play it like this, and actually on my tenor, I will be inclined to play it like this. This is my soprano ukulele, so the frets are a lot smaller, and it's a lot tougher to squeeze my fingers into such a small space. So this is actually a little bit harder for me on this instrument than this happens to be. But that's just one more way of playing the F. I could also flip it around and play the F like this, where I'm barring the 5th fret of all my strings, and I'm adding my pinky to the 8th fret of the A string. Now, another great thing that all these different voicings are good for is if you're playing a song that's hanging on one particular chord for a while. So let's say I'm going back and forth between C and F for a long time. So I'm just going C, another measure of C, gosh, another measure of C, one more. Okay, here comes an F. All right, great, but now I have to go back to C. So when I'm hanging on that, maybe I've gotten my C chord down. I don't even have to think about it anymore. I'm super, super comfortable with it, and I'm just kind of getting a little bored just strumming that same old C that whole time. Well, I could try changing it up over those measures. So maybe measure 1, I play this. And measure 2, I play this. Measure 3, I play this. Measure 4, jump over there. It's a little bit more work. It's going to take practice to learn those new shapes, but it's going to be a cool new element that you can add to a song that maybe before was a little too simple because it was just the same thing over and over again. Let's see, one more F chord that I have on the chart is tough to get on the soprano. If I was playing it on the tenor, I would play it like this. This, once again, is that same chord shape as I was playing down here, which is the same chord shape as like a B flat or a B chord. And we can turn that into a C by playing it on the 3rd fret. Well, the F chord version of that can be played on the 8th fret of the A string and E string, and the 9th fret of the C string. Now, I could add my ring finger down here on the G string, but again, this instrument is just not very big up here. I'm not going to be able to play that comfortably or accurately, so the most that I'm going to do is this on this particular instrument. Again, other instruments with longer necks, I will be inclined to go up there a little bit. But for this example, that's as high as I'm going. That seems high enough. G, the G chords, we've got your regular old G. Then I've got this G where instead of playing the open G string in the shape, I've pivoted my hand a little bit. So now I'm playing the 4th fret of the G string with my ring finger. Once again, all I'm doing is I'm changing the note that's getting doubled there. A G chord is G, B, and D. So I've got a G, D, G, B. And if I do this, it's B, D, G, B. Very subtle difference. But there are still places where both of those can be really nice chords. So then we've got this G here, which is the same shape as that F chord that we looked at down here. This is kind of a tough way to play it. But now I'm a little bit higher, and this voicing is even tougher to get. But this one is always really nice. So we saw this shape earlier. Our F was here. Our G is going to be right here. So now I'm barring the 7th fret of all my strings. My pinky is added to the 10th fret of the A string. D chords. So we have our friendly neighborhood D, right? 2nd fret of the G, C, and E strings, open A. You can finger it however you'd like, either across like this, or sometimes that's easier for me to squeeze all my fingers into. I like this version of D, which again was the same as the F and the G that we looked at over here, but now I'm barring the 2nd fret of all the strings, and then adding my pinky to the 5th fret of the A string. I like chords without open strings in them because it gives me a little bit more control over how I hear those chords. If there are no open strings, all I have to do to mute a chord is just relax my hand. So it becomes really easy to do like staccato. It's a fun rhythm to do where I'm just letting those notes ring out just long enough for you to hear them, and then I'm muting them almost immediately afterwards. Fun little technique. I've got this version of D, which is the same shape as the C that we looked at, where I'm playing from the G string to the A string. I'm playing 7, 6, 5, 5. My pointer finger's barred across the 5th fret. Moving on to the A chord, I've got my old A. So 2, 1, open, open. I can add my pinky finger to the 4th fret of my A string. The notes that make an A chord are A, C sharp, and E. So I'm just turning this A note into a C sharp note. Another shape that I can play is right here. And this is actually the same shape as that G chord that we looked at down here. And if I move it up 2 frets, I get an A chord. So from G to A, my fret numbers are 6, 4, 5, 4. And I can also play this shape right here. Again, that was the same as my G and F and D shape that I looked at, but now I'm all the way up here. Yes. Now this one's definitely tough to get on a soprano ukulele with those tiny frets all the way up there, playing the 9th, barring the 9th fret, and throwing my pinky onto the 12th fret. Really tough, but if you can make it work, it can be a really cool one to have. And then the last one that I wanted to share with you was the E7 chord. So here's the E7 that you're probably comfortable with. From G to A, 1, 2, open E, 2. Now, an E7th chords have 4 notes as opposed to the 3 notes that we were looking at when we were just looking at a major or a minor chord. We didn't look at minor chords today, but if we did, they would be 3 notes. So 7th chords add, basically what they do is they add the 7th note of the scale to that chord. So this E7 includes the 7th degree of the E scale. It's actually the 7th degree flatted for a dominant 7th. But again, don't worry about that right now. We're adding a D note to our E chord. So I can play it here. I can also play this shape, which I like a lot. So I'm barring the 4th fret of all my strings and adding my middle finger to the 5th fret of the A string. And then finally, this version right here. Make that a little bit cleaner, yeah. So here, I am barring all the strings on my 7th fret, and I'm adding my middle finger on the 8th fret of the C string. So 7, 8, 7, 7. And I've got an E7 chord. Once again, that can be really fun to bounce around with if you're taking a little solo or something like that, or if you're just hanging out on an E7 for a really long time, you need to break it up. So all of these chords are written out in chord diagrams in your handout, as well as tablature. And then I've got another page that's just full of different examples that you can play using combinations of all these chords. So I've got some examples of different types of progressions I could play in starting in C major using the chords C, F, and G. Now, I didn't define which C's or F's or G's you are to play here. It is your choice. You can experiment and try out some of these different shapes with these patterns. And a lot of these patterns are going to show up in songs that you're familiar with and that you're learning, and you can try it out once you're kind of comfortable with some of the different shapes. So the little progression in C major has 2 bars of C, 2 bars of F, back to 2 bars of C, and finishing with 2 bars of G, and then of course we can just repeat it. So I'm just gonna play that and see what I come up with here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, it doesn't necessarily even have to be that much movement. I could move around a little bit less if I wanted to. I'm going to jump to the A major progression. Now, you can kind of think of this progression as what you would hear in Hound Dog. This is the progression for that song. So I'm going to try and move around a little bit less, but still use some of those different voicings. So start on A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Coming up on the D here. My pinky finger was already really close to this shape. So there, I was kind of using those different shapes to make the transition between chords a little bit smoother. If I was playing my C down here, and the next chord was F, and I jump up here, that's a long distance. All those notes jumped really far, and sometimes that's great for effect, but if we don't want to call attention to ourselves as much, we might want to try and find voicings that are a little bit closer to each other. That's what I liked about this. Like, my immediate thought when I was going from this A, my A chord, and I'm using my pinky on the 4th fret of the A string, is I was really close to that D chord shape that we found. So there's almost a melodic element to changing those notes by where I positioned my notes. My C sharp note right here is right next to this G note right here, or I'm sorry, this D note right here. When notes can shift that that closely, can be add some really nice melodic elements to it. Sometimes melodies can just jump out at you when you're playing some of these different voicings. And then I switched back to the regular old A shape in preparation to move to the E7, which I started right here. And then I went up to that next version of E7 like this, and this 7th chord shape is super, super close to this A shape right here. So E7 to A. So it's really, really close next door to each other. And even though I am playing these bar chords, which can take a little bit more time to get used to, once I'm there, I can make some pretty smooth transitions pretty easily. So play around with these chord shapes, play around with some of these progressions, and maybe try out some of these new voicings on songs that you're familiar with. Maybe start with a 1-chord song, do a Frere Jacques or something like that, and see how that feels with a different chord shape. All right, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this fun and useful. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at tinyvillagemusic@gmail.com. I'm always excited to talk about this stuff, so don't be shy. All right, thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one.